I am very excited to tell you guys about what we're building here in Berlin, starting in April, or launched very recently. Before I do though, I kind of want to get a bit of a pulse on the room, so I can figure out how to talk about this. How many people here are working in the crypto Web3 space? Okay, like kind of half the room. How many people are researchers that are actively doing research? Okay. Maybe the last question is, how many people here are actively at the moment looking for a grant for their work? Oh, that's, okay, well, then that's good to know. We'll see if that becomes relevant. So first, a little bit about me. I'm Bradley. I am the node manager here in Berlin for the Foresight Institute. I'll say a little bit more about Foresight in a second. My background is I was a web developer, a UX designer for over 10 years now. I studied cognitive science here in Germany. What else to say about me there? Yeah, I've been a builder and operator and event organizer in the frontier tech and science space for probably at least the last half decade. And a bit more about Foresight. How many people know Foresight already? How many people have been to a Foresight event already? Okay, so then I'll kind of breeze through this. Foresight is a San Francisco-based nonprofit founded in the 80s, originally with a focus on nanotechnology. Our logo there is a nanoscale wheel. Since then, we now cover 5 tracks. So we're a nonprofit. We provide grants, resources, fellowships. We do the Feynman Prize. We host these vision weekends, and we've got 5 tracks now. It's nanotech, which was original, neurotech, biotech longevity, which could be really interesting here, space technology, and now secure AI. And as you guys can all imagine, secure AI has definitely become a large part of what we're doing. And probably a fun little piece of lore that's always fun to share is our co-founder, Christine Peterson, at a Foresight event in 1997, coined the term open source. Before that, it was called free software, kind of like free research, and they found at the time that a lot of people didn't want to get into it. Didn't feel good to say, oh yeah, I'm developing free software, because wives and husbands were like, well, how is that going to pay the bills? And so they were at an event. They were trying to figure out how to solve this kind of branding issue for a very important area of research or area of development. And she didn't even come up and just say it. She didn't feel at the time that it was a really good name. She thought it was a good enough name. She whispered it to a colleague. They kind of brought it into the chat, and they were like, well, yeah, let's go with that. And then here we are today. And I think this is a fun little piece of lore, because now when it comes to open source models, open source AI, we're seeing a huge insurgence where most of the world now knows what that means. And now there's this tension between the centralization that we're seeing with the frontier models and the decentralization that some people, for example, Foresight is really interested in promoting when it comes to open source and open weight models. So I think that's all going to become much more relevant as I kind of tell you guys about what we're building here in Berlin. But I want to talk a little bit about the problem as I see it. So this is me standing up here as the node manager for Foresight. I'm going to share a little bit about what really matters to me. Some of this reflects how Foresight feels, but I wanted to make this personal and talk about the problem as I see it. So this is a quote from Allison in a node positioning paper that she wrote recently. And this a future in which AI accelerates scientific progress without locking in centralized power or risking existential safety. And this is, I think, a big mission behind the way that Foresight's approaching this. Who believes this future is possible? I might keep asking you guys questions to see if you're all paying attention out there. So we got about half the room thinks this is possible. One of the people who doesn't think this is possible, would you just shout out why you don't see this future being possible? Nobody wants to stand up for that? Okay. Well, then I'm going to assume then it is, and I'm going to go through from that place. So for maybe some of those people that are worried about that future or don't think it's possible, you probably all heard about this. It just happened, I think, 3 or 4 days ago. So if you didn't, last week, I think it was June 9th, who's used Fable 5? Wow, okay, great. So Fable 5 came on the market. It's an Anthropic model. It was incredible, but it wouldn't even talk to you about things like biology. It wouldn't even talk to you about things like consciousness. Some of the researchers in my node were just completely stopped from using it. Nonetheless, the people that could get through said it was phenomenal. They said it really changed the way they were going about things. They were already designing new workflows in their research around using Fable 5 and Mythos. But then, I think it was on June 12th, US export order blocked it for everybody. This is something that before that we didn't believe could happen. We didn't think this kind of stuff was possible. We thought, and they gave them 24-hour notice. There was just a verbal a verbal command. There wasn't even really a written disclaimer from the government on why this is possible. And within a day, it was unavailable for everybody, cut cold turkey. And the reason why I think this is important is this is something that I think is something we need to take very, very seriously if we're doing decentralized research, or if we're doing research and science at large. If we don't own the model, if we don't host the model, if we're not running the model, then we don't control the off switch, and someone else does, and we don't control our access to it. And I think we know this, we feel it, but many of us feel like there isn't an alternative. And I'm going to talk a little bit today about the alternative that we're building. This is from a article, a paper that was published this year. This is the title of the paper: AI for Scientific Discovery is a Social Problem. And that problem is this. At the moment, 90% of the notable models of these frontier models are coming out of industry. And 90% of academics don't have access to those models. That number is even worse in places like Africa, where less than 5% of the AI research and the research community and the scientific community there has access to state-of-the-art models. And what we're seeing is that it can take them a week sometimes for a cycle that in another country is taking 30 minutes to get access to these models and to run compute. So we're seeing there's a huge discrepancy that's already appearing in the kind of access that people have and whether or not they can actually run these models. I think this is a great article. I recommend reading it. And I think that personally, again, this is a bit of a personal opinion, but I hope that some of you agree with me. Also, you can still hear me if I don't? Great. So I've stopped leaning as much. I believe the work happens at the human scale, and there's a lot that we can do beyond just relying on these frontier models. I think the speaker before talked about this coordination layer, and I think that's really important. Oop, did it? Great. Why is that? Well, and why are we not so dependent on the models themselves? I think AI intrinsically is backward looking, right? We have all this training data, we train the model, they run the literature, but science intrinsically is forward looking. We're trying to innovate on things. We're trying to come up with new discoveries, which means that we shouldn't be so nervous about, oh my God, I just need a more powerful model. I need to have like a larger model to run this and that. There's so much more that we can do. So what does that look like? What is forward-looking infrastructure that goes beyond just relying on a large frontier model? And I'd like to introduce to you a new primitive, which we're calling an AI node. So for Foresight's 40th year anniversary, we decided to launch what we're calling this node project, a node initiative. I'm one of the node managers here in Berlin, which is our first European location. And we also have Rachel, who joined us a couple months ago in SF, and she's running the SF node. At the moment, we have 2 nodes. I'll talk more a little bit about that. We've been live since April. We've got 24/7 access to the space. We're living right now here in Berlin at the Cambridge Innovation Campus. Some of you might know that place next to Görlitzer Park. It used to be Factory Berlin before COVID. We've hosted, I think I put 17 on here. That was a low estimate. I think we've hosted over 20 events now. Everything from a 200-person opening launch day to a 15-person salon on a very niche topic where it's curated and we have breakout sessions and all of that. We've been hosting a bunch of events, probably 2 or 3 a month at least. We've had thousands of people already through the door. This lovely photo here is of our earliest residents. I think I've onboarded now 19 researchers. 5 of them come from CIMC, which is the California Institute of Machine Consciousness. We're hosting some of theirs, and we've got a bunch of people doing AI for science, AI for safety work. I don't know if I have enough time to dive into all of the details, but these people are absolutely amazing. And so like I mentioned here, we've got SF Live. We're exploring London. That's not confirmed. It's one of the locations. And I'll talk a bit more about that. And so why do we feel like having a physical space like this matters? And I don't know if I have it on the slides. I think I do have it on the slides here, so I'll hold off on that. But before I go more into the node, this comes from Antonio Gramsci. He was I believe a Marxist writer back in the 30s who wrote from prison. And he has some of the greatest writing on what does a movement or a counter-hegemonic movement actually need. And he says there's 3 things. And I know I'm covering a lot of stuff here, but I'm gonna have time for questions in the end. He says we need material capabilities, We need ideology, and we need institutions. Those are the three things that he says that we need to stage a counter movement to a current hegemonic ideal or hegemonic space. Just to be really clear on what I mean by that, to kind of recap, we're seeing these frontier models. Everyone right now is basically waiting for the next frontier model to come out. We're begging for access. We're putting all of our chips in that boat. But there's other versions of this. And so obviously when we look at the DeSci space right now, through crypto and Web3 and all of that, we've got a lot of material capabilities. I don't see that as an issue. When it comes to ideologies, protocols, the things that we can write down, we've got a lot of that as well. But the thing that I think that we're missing is the institutions or the community of practices, the physical spaces for us to be together, for us to work together, for us to have that interdisciplinary exchange between different types of research. The stuff that, to go back to that earlier slide, allows us to be forward-looking and not just backward-looking and relying on what these models can output for us. So, as someone that studied cognitive science and also who's Canadian, I'm a huge fan of John Vervaeke. He has a 50-part lecture series called Awaken from the Meaning Crisis. If you guys haven't seen it, I highly recommend checking it out. And one of my favorite quotes from that series, I'll read to you. We need a comprehensive set of psychotechnologies that are set within a community of practice that allow for the comprehensive transformations of consciousness, cognition, character, and culture. I understand that that's a very broad, very kind of like hypothetical, theoretical, like those last 4 words there make it go like, okay, where are we going with this? I think you should definitely watch the lecture series. I think these first 2, we have a lot in this space and in this room. I think we have material capabilities, we have a lot of ideologies. It's time for us all together, I think, to start building more physical or phygital institutions. Bit more on the node. I know a lot of people aren't necessarily looking for grants, but maybe some of you are looking for co-working space. Maybe some of you are looking for really interesting events here in Berlin to join. I think it's fun to define the node by what it's not. We are not an academic department. We are not a corporate lab. We are not just a co-working space. We are not an accelerator. And we are not a conference venue or an event venue. But this is what we are. So we have a huge space. I wish I had more photos of the space, but you guys can come and talk to me, or you can just come and visit. Every second Thursday, we do an open co-working with AI Safety Berlin, which is a really cool organization. And so you can just come and hang out and co-work out of the space all day. We've got multiple rooms and huge space there, but there's a couple things we're offering there. A third of what I do and a third of what matters is compute. I didn't mention this yet, but I think this is pretty relevant. We are building out a on-prem cluster there. I'm not going to go into the numbers today. People always ask. I want to leave that out because it's still very much in development, but we do have GPUs in the space already. We do have a handful of our researchers that are already running their experiments on our compute right down the hall from the space that they're co-working in. We offer funding. We have grants. They're seed grants. The 5 tracks that I named earlier, if you're working in any of those areas and you're doing research in those areas, you can come to us for a grant. Obviously, we've got daily co-working space. If you are looking for a grant, we highly prioritize people that want to be in the space with us and build the culture with us. This is an experiment. We just opened in April, all of that stuff. Like I mentioned, events and a community of peers. So this is kind of what the node actually looks like. And this is actually from one of our Vision Weekend events. That's not a picture of the node, but that's a picture of the community of peers. These are my 4 experimental commitments. I can't speak for Rachel and SF. I can't speak for the next node manager and the next node that we open. But this is what I think is really, really important. Hard problems first. I think that the most important thing we're doing here at the node, and I think one of the most important things that if you're trying to build any kind of like physical infrastructure around research is or trying to build any kind of community whatsoever, is to focus on the hard problem. In 2024, I was running a space called Moose Space, which is a large community, like a Web3 adjacent community space. Anyone know Moose or went there? Okay, cool, a handful. The problem there is that me and my team back then, we were trying to build community there for community's sake. We're like, oh, we want to build Web3 community. We want to build community. And I think I've come to learn, and there's some people who have talked about this, building community for community's sake doesn't work. So I think you need to focus on the hard problems, you need to focus on the research, you need to focus on actually outputting something together. Obviously, experimental sovereignty, the cluster, I think is a big part of that. Scheduled serendipity is a fun little thing that I throw around the node all the time. My nodies or node residents, I don't know if they like it, but when we come together for lunch, I say like, oh, this is scheduled serendipity. I'm going to buy you all lunch. then who knows what will happen. But this has already been proven. We had, at one of our co-working lunches a couple weeks ago, 2 researchers, young researchers from Ocean Protocol, just happened to be in the area and asked if they could stop by, and there was a couple extra Subway sandwiches on the table. And by the end of like a 20-minute lunch, they were talking to 2 of the Node residents about how they can get one of their FNIRS devices and host it during our workshop in July, which I'll talk about at the very end of this. So I'm already kind of seeing that just being in the room together, amazing things happen. I'm about to talk about a genome sequencer that we just purchased, and that also just came because people were in the room together and were like, hey, can we make this happen? And all of a sudden it did. And no commercial veto. We don't, there's no inconvenient findings that are going to mean you're no longer going to get your funding. We fund independently of that. This is a little bit on who's already there. Again, we opened in April. We have, we have, I think, over 20 now that have been onboarded. I'm just going to read off a little bit here. We've got Kevin, who's working on Open Chemistry Arena. We've got Martin Carlson, who is in the back there, who knows much more about the genome sequencing project that we're going to start off than I do. We've got George, who just finished his residency with us a couple days ago, and just told me, I just sent a message, I think at like 2 in the morning last night, saying, hey, my first Foresight-funded research paper has been accepted by this journal. I'm really excited. Here it is. Here's the publication. So already in just the first couple months, we're already seeing stuff, like tangible stuff happen, which is really exciting. Paul, I'm sure Paul's going to hate that I share this little thing, but it's just too fun to me. Paul is working on automated AI research, but more even fun than that, Allison, our CEO, accidentally shipped a pack of diapers to Berlin and not SF. Turns out Paul's daughter is the same age as Allison's, so it turned out great because he could take the nappies home with him. So another great example of scheduled serendipity. Maybe he was in the market for diapers and they just showed up. Not really research based, but I think it's fun. Georgios, amazing. He's doing I think mech interpretability. Gosh, I don't want to misquote that. So if you want to know more about all the great research that's happening there, come and talk to us. Come and hang out. I'm pretty sure there's also stuff on the website, foresight.org. There's so many that I just can't keep track at the moment. We're not alone. I just wanted to throw this up here. I'm not going to go through all of this, but these are a bunch of the other organizations that we've already started working with, that we're partnering with, that we're doing really cool stuff with. Molecule is one of them. We've got Sprint that I'm going to be hanging out with Barbara today. 3 minutes left, thank you. Dark Matter Labs, Medulla City, Futura House. I'm sure a bunch of you know a lot of these organizations, but we're trying to build something larger here. So I'm getting very close to like the call to action now. Why am I telling you all this? But before I get to that call to action, this is a very, very new project as well that Martin's spearheading in the back there. We just bought a genome sequencer. So like I said, we're putting GPUs into the space. We already have compute running there, and I am very excited to see what we can do if we combine the genome sequencer with on-prem compute and to see if we can sequence our genomes and offer that as a service to the community. And I put this up here as well because if you want to be a collaborator on this project, if this is an area of your interest, we are definitely looking for collaborators on this. We want to provide this to the community as well. So if you know someone that maybe wants to sponsor a really cool, like on-prem, like local genome sequencing project, just come and talk to me or Martin. And maybe one little point to this as well. I think personalized medicine is going to become really, really big, and I think being able to do that where you have sovereignty over like the whole supply chain there, or the dependency chain, I think is going to become really important, even if right now it feels a little bit ahead of its time or unnecessary. Cool. So this is our larger vision. We believe in a global network of AI nodes for science and safety. There's 2 that are open now. We're exploring a 3rd already. If you know somebody in some city who wants to open up a node like this, physical space with on-prem compute for researchers, for builders, we're providing resources. We've got a couple applications already, but we're helping provide the seed grant also to open up new nodes. And they don't need to all be Foresight nodes. We're trying to create a distributed network of these nodes that can potentially share compute in the future, that can share the insights, all of that good stuff. And so these are the four basically call to actions that I just wanted to share. This wasn't supposed to feel like a pitch. If it did, I'm sorry, but it was supposed to say, hey, here's something that we're building. This is something that opened in April. I just joined Foresight in November, and we want everyone who's working in the DeSci space to know that we're here and to come and hang out with us. Apply for a grant if you're a researcher. build your own node if you know someone that wants to do something like that. If you're a DevOps person and you want to come in and touch metal and work on the cluster with us, we're looking for someone. We're actually hiring a part-time DevOps person. So yeah, just come build. And maybe the last little thing is the umbrella over everything that we do is existential hope. And we have a really cool project that launched soon, the Existential Hope Project, run by Beatrice. You probably have heard of the podcast. She's doing incredible work. She's also looking for more incredible guests that want to talk about existential hope from a very serious perspective. So I would say go check out the podcast as well. I know I covered a lot. I think I stayed within time. Thank you, guys. This was fun.